Hey there. Hey, here's your recap from Philippians study on Wednesday nights. Last week, October 25th, we finished out chapter 1. And I sort of titled that little section of living, dying, striving, and suffering for and in Christ. Probably the biggest thing that stood out to me was granted to believe and suffer. And I kind of studied it. When I studied it out, I did it backwards, probably because that verse stood out to me so strongly, that I tried to search that out. What does it mean to be granted? And why is Paul saying that? So I'll back up and say he first starts out that part of that chapter talking about being in prison. He doesn't know the outcome. He doesn't know if he's going to get out. He has complete and whole total confidence in God, and he also expresses, he says, that he knows that they're praying for him. He has confidence in their prayers. He believes in the effectual, fervent prayers of a righteous man. He knows they are praying for them, and he knows that God answers their prayers. It's just a complete faith. It's not trying to think it out. It's just knowing of who God is, that God answers prayers, and God is hears the prayers, and that it's not a waste of time. So he's affirming the prayers of the saints. At the same time, it's like, is he saying he's going to die or he's going to live? I believe that he's speaking from a faith standpoint. He believes in his deliverance, but he's also wanting to reassure the people there in Philippi. Listen, I'm okay either way. If I die for the cause of Christ, from being in prison for spreading the gospel, that's a good thing. I get to be in the presence of Christ. I get to go to a literal place where Christ is, and he's excited about that. But then he says he realizes and he thinks about them. He has more of a concern for them than himself, and he says, "But I know if I stay, I can realize and live out the fruit of my labor that I have in you, and that it'll be for you." He doesn't want them to be sad, so it's about them, and so he's okay either way. So he's speaking from a faith standpoint, and I related that to divine healing. Sometimes people say they received their divine healing and they didn't get healed. They died and went to heaven, and people that are left behind realize and know that God was faithful, and whether they got their healing here on earth or in heaven, they got their healing because they have faith in Christ. And I just think that's a beautiful thing to have that faith. So Paul talks about the way he's living, and then he turns around and encourages them. Listen, keep striving in Christ. Keep doing it. I know you're doing it. I'm getting reports back from you, and I know you're being faithful. Keep doing it. No matter what's ahead, no matter if you experience what I'm experiencing in jail, or you experience this persecution, keep striving for unity, striving to do the work of the gospel, and keep living the life that you're living. And then he does go on to say, you're granted. You're granted to believe. And I for some reason, when I was studying that out, I kept thinking appointed, and I had to make myself, it doesn't say appointed, it says granted. What does it mean? And essentially what we're talking about is Paul affirming other scriptures and affirming what Jesus has said, that Jesus said that you follow me and they've persecuted me. I've suffered, so don't think that you're not going to too. That if your master does, you're going to too. But Paul is saying it's a privilege. To count it joy, basically. He's saying that it's granted to you, that you get to believe in him, but you're going to suffer. And I thought, how can this be something? And it's not an accident. It's not divine punishment. It is a privilege because God has counted you worthy to handle that suffering. That you are, it feels good in a way that the reason that you're suffering is for Christ. It's for the right reasons. I mean, you can be punished for the wrong reasons and have remorse. But if you're like Paul, you're being punished by man for Christ. And it's just that much more privileged because we know that when we are persecuted, we receive a reward in heaven. That it is just a privilege. It is God entrusting us, and it is essentially a good thing. So that was the littlest summary that I could put for last week. So if you are suffering for Christ, count it a privilege, and know that, and be joyous in the fact that God counted you worthy, and that you're striving for something, that you're living for what is in eternity instead of what is here in front of you. There was a lot more than that, but that was the small summary. So again, tomorrow we'll be talking about unity in Christ, and humility. And I think those are good subjects too. So be blessed. See you next time.